Bringing bighorn sheep back to the Catalinas, a translocation project just months in the making, already igniting a firestorm of emotion.
They want to put in the species that they want, and they want to remove the species that interferes with this population they're trying to produce. And you know, to that goal, they're collaring the sheep for life, and they're killing mountain lions, and they're flying helicopters into wilderness.
Death and life, the Arizona Game and Fish Department standing by its plan and defending its mission.
We have learned that we have 2 new lambs as of today, and they're about a month old each, and that's just to prove that they've made it for a month now, and that's a really good sign.
For the first time, the public hears from the wildlife experts behind the project. This is Arizona Week. Bighorn sheep are native to Arizona and decades ago thrived in the Catalina Mountain Range near Tucson. But the herd died off. Then Arizona Game and Fish decided it was time to bring in a new herd, a project 4 years in the making. Here now is the man behind that project, Raul Vega, Region 5 Supervisor for Arizona Game and Fish.
There's been quite a few challenges since the time we started. I think like you mentioned, having a really good source population where we could get the sheep from. The other thing was this the right time? And the other, we have a process through the department that put us at the very top, and it was just the right opportunity to do it this year. And that is for various other reasons, of course. That's including some of the most recent fires that we had in the mountain range there in the Catalinas that allow us to do this, and it was the most appropriate time.
You were involved in that capture of the herd in the Yuma area, and you saw to it that they were relocated. Can you describe logistically what it was like being there to watch it happen?
Yes, it was a very good experience for me. I think the fact that I was able to see these animals on the ground and be able to just have that connection, touch them, put the radar collars and the GPS collars on them and load them up to the trailers to bring them over here. It was a great experience for me, and I think that gave me a very good sense that this is the right thing to do.
There are a lot of people who would disagree with that would say this is not the right thing to do. But your background, your education is in wildlife management. Describe why this was important to you.
Our department has a mission, and just like any other department, our mission is to restore native wildlife populations anywhere that we can. My background as a wildlife biologist and wildlife management is what I do, is my passion. I think that having this opportunity, it has been one of the greatest opportunities for me and for the department with this new process and everything that we do, and it's really amazing how far we come on this.
You have lost some sheep up there to mountain lions. Was that a surprise to you?
That was not a surprise. It is a surprise on the rate and how fast it's happening, but we need to consider the fact that we're using new technology, state-of-the-art technology that is allowing us to be able to respond fairly quick to these mortalities, and we're getting signals from the satellite immediately almost, and I think that's one of the factors why this is so different and why we have that information at hand, and we being transparent by providing that information as we can to the public.
It is no surprise to you that mountain lions prey on sheep, but people are upset, particularly upset, that Game and Fish has then gone out to remove those mountain lions. Why have you done that?
It is part of the predator management plan that we created as a community. That's the other thing that has been very unique about this project. We have very knowledgeable, professional people that came from other groups, our stakeholders, that all together we put this management plan, and it's been one of the best management plans that I've seen in my career. And I think we've been very conservative as to how we were going to do this, but we cautiously planned this so we're not taking too many lions or anything like that. Our goal is to have a viable population of sheep that can coexist with mountain lions in the future.
Will there come a point where the mountain lions continue to prey on the sheep, but then you decide not to remove the mountain lions?
There will be a point when we establish a viable population of sheep up there that would not be necessary. I believe that we are very optimistic, and that's going to hopefully be the case.
But mountain lions and sheep, they can live together on this mountain range.
They can coexist together. They've done it for millions of years before, and it's a new process, new technology, and we're all learning. The story that we have at this point is not being told by just mortality signal. It's bigger than that. There's a bigger story, and the public just needs to wait and see. We got a bigger story later.
And there is some proof of success. Talk about what happened this
Yes, that
week.
makes me very happy. That is, we have learned that we have 2 new lambs as of today, and they're about a month old each, and that's just to prove that they made it for a month now, and that's a really good sign. And that's, you know, we cautiously optimistic that this is going to work, and there's the proof there.
What happens if we lose all of the bighorn sheep up there? Will that happen? Is that possible?
That is a possibility. At that point, we would have to reconvene with our committee members and make a decision at that point. But that is a possibility.
What do you say to the naysayers out there, the people who are angry and frustrated with Game and Fish about this project?
I will say that the story, like I mentioned earlier, is not over yet. To give us an opportunity we have done this throughout the state. We have done over 2,000 translocations of wildlife species.
You've not spoken with the media before on this, but you said this is the time. Why is it the time now?
This is the time to bring some good points of, you know, why people are concerned. And I think the lack of information provided, we had 3 public meetings prior to the release, and we had very few people come to those meetings. We had up to 6 articles in the Daily Star prior to the release, and we want people to comment. We want people to tell us what they think. I think that's really important. Wildlife belongs to the public, and we need to hear from them. And we provided that prior to the release. Unfortunately, we didn't get those comments at that time, but we continue to ask the public, go ahead and let us know what you think. It's important.
It's unknown exactly how many mountain lions are in the Catalinas, but last year, Game and Fish received 100 calls of reported sightings in that mountain range. Game and Fish is not alone on this project. The agency is working with a group of citizens with a wide range of experience and expertise.
Joe Sheehey, a member of the Catalina Bighorn Advisory Committee. Describe this committee, what it actually does during this process.
Well, this committee is made up of members from the sportsmen's group around Tucson and of some of the environmental groups around Tucson. And we came together to put together a plan for this relocation with many, many facets and aspects to it. Certainly one of the most important was the predator management plan and how we were going to deal with potential predation issues, as well as many, many other aspects of the relocation project itself.
And your background, your education is in biology, so you know a little bit about the bighorn sheep and how they would function in the mountains.
A little bit about that, and plus in the 70s and 80s, I spent a lot of time with the indigenous population that was there in the Catalinas back then.
Describe what it looked like back then. How big was the herd?
Well, I don't think the herd was any larger, at least in my experience, than 100 animals, but it seemed to be a very healthy, self-sustaining population. The sheep were a very unique looking desert bighorn. They had lots of hair, very heavy sheep, and I think that had to do with the lush vegetation that that they had to forage on compared to sheep in other mountain ranges.
And for people who may not be up to speed on this story, would you describe what happened to that herd back then?
Well, we don't really know what happened. There's been 4 or 5 different reasons given, and it's probably a combination of those. But anything from disease to predation to population pressure, those have all been given as examples of why those sheep declined.
Would you describe why you supported the movement, the relocation of the herd from Yuma to this mountain range?
Well, this mountain range, I mean, is very special to me given the fact that I spent a lot of time with the sheep herd that was in there. And to me, this mountain just needs, bighorn sheep should be in this mountain. They were there, they were always there, and I think they're important to the community of Tucson to have bighorn sheep in that mountain range.
Let's talk about the predation factor. It has upset a lot of people who thought this was a great idea initially. This is perhaps something they didn't think would happen, or they were surprised that it happened so quickly. Describe the biology of things, of what's actually happening now in that mountain range.
Well, we have several things going on. We certainly have a lot of mountain lions, many more mountain lions than sheep. That's become obvious. The sheep have done what sheep do in a typical relocation, and that's disperse. In this case, some of the country that they dispersed to initially was not very good sheep country. They didn't have very good escape terrain, and I think they became fairly easy prey to mountain lions. Gradually, the sheep are coming into more what we would call traditional sheep country, and hopefully this predation will level off now.
The predation was not a surprise to you.
No, it was not a surprise. It is disappointing the rate of predation, and like I said, some of these incidents have happened where, you know, for lack of a better term, sheep shouldn't be. And hopefully, as these sheep move into more traditional bighorn sheep terrain, we'll have a lot less incidents of mountain lion predation.
Opponents of the plan say that the sheep, don't have the geography they need to survive. Do they out in that range?
Oh, that's a tremendous amount of country for sheep, you know. Plus now we've had 2 major fires up there that have really opened up a lot more habitat than the sheep had originally. So I would say that is a long way from the truth. I mean, that mountain range could probably handle a whole lot of sheep.
We've only gone 3 or so months into this project. How will we know when it has been successful? Is there a timeline?
Well, there is not a timeline. A lot has to do with what happens next. You know, we've lost 10 sheep. We're certainly far from throwing in the towel. I think this project can be successful. Ultimately, it'll be successful when we have a self-sustaining population up there that lives in harmony with all the factors that limit bighorn sheep, predation, disease, and everything else.
There are people who are still on the fence about how they feel about this issue. What would you say to them?
Oh, I would say give this a chance, and certainly anyone who had the opportunity in the future to look up there and see a bighorn sheep standing on a rock, if that wouldn't change your mind about how important this is and how meaningful this project is, then nothing would.
Game and Fish brought a total of 31 sheep to the mountain range. The project started in November. Here we are in February, and a third of the herd has died. Game and Fish also killed 2 mountain lions that preyed on the sheep. And just this week, news of 2 lamb births. Arizona Public Media's Vanessa Barchfield has more on the controversy surrounding the translocation.
1, 2, 3. Just as the reintroduction of bighorn sheep united a strange mix of supporters, from ecologists to hunters to government officials, a wide cross-section of Tucsonans have also voiced opposition, including hikers, environmentalists, and other concerned residents from across the political spectrum. While the project stirred controversy from the beginning, tempers flared with the announcement that the Department of Game and Fish had killed 2 mountain lions for preying on bighorn sheep just 2 weeks after their release. Tucson resident Ben Pachano says it was the mountain lion's killing that prompted him and several other concerned residents to form Friends of Wild Animals, a group dedicated to stopping the introduction of bighorn to the Catalinas.
Game and Fish was not being forthcoming with information about it. It seemed like there were these fundamental problems with the program, and the more I learned, the more disturbing the picture has become.
Pachano works with about 14 other people on Friends of Wild Animals' organizing committee, and the group has 233 likes on its Facebook page.
We feel like Game and Fish is treating the Catalinas like a stock pond. They want to put in the species that they want, and they want to remove the species that interferes with this population they're trying to produce. And you know, to that goal, they're collaring the sheep for life, and they're killing mountain lions, and they're flying helicopters into wilderness. And that is not the kind of attitude that we would like to see. We think that wild animals should be wild, and neither the bighorns or the mountain lions are being given that respect.
Not everyone at Catalina State Park agrees with Pachano. Hiker Jim Themelis says he supports the reintroduction of the sheep primarily because he'd like to come across them during his regular trail hikes. He also says he trusts that Game and Fish knows how to run these sorts of reintroductions.
The state must know something, because we were down to like 1,500 in the state at one point, and they're up to 5,000 now, so it doesn't look good. The odds are bad so far that 10 are dead since the end of November, but if they've gotten triple or quadruple the population, they must be doing something, and you got to at least give them the 5-year plan or the 3-year plan, and it's not costing taxpayer dollars, so why not?
Opponent Ben Pachano says Game and Fish has not adequately explained the logic behind the reintroduction.
They've simply said that they want to reintroduce the herd, but they haven't explained why that's important. They haven't addressed whether there's a hunting motivation behind that, and they're going to such extreme measures for this program, and we don't know why.
Many of the program's critics, including Friends of Wild Animals, suspect hunting to be at the core of the reintroduction.
Game and Fish has a long history of viewing hunters and ranchers as their constituency, and it's intrinsic in the culture of the agency. So bighorn sheep are a very popular and lucrative game species, and mountain lions are viewed as pests by both hunters and ranchers, and we see that attitude across the board in Game and Fish's policies.
Since mid-December, Friends of Wild Animals has organized several protests at the Game and Fish offices, filed a public information request on the program, and is currently planning a protest at the Forest Service office.
We feel like there needs to be some threshold at which they say too many mountain lions have died, too many sheep have died too fast, and we're going to pull the plug.
And as it seems the state doesn't expect to pull the plug on its bighorn reintroduction anytime soon, the issue looks set to energize Tucson's passions for some time to come. For Arizona Week, I'm Vanessa Barchfield.
Game and Fish fitted the bighorn sheep with GPS trackers. The technology allows the agency to monitor their movement. That system sends officers a signal when there's a problem, and it even lets officers know when one of the rams cross the Mount Lemmon Highway.
This is their movements. So far, if you can see, for instance, let me give you a good example here. If you follow this one here on the white line here, that is a male that has been traveling all the way from the release site over closer towards the east side of the mountain and over towards Sabino Canyon. Let me see if I can move that. That kind of gives you an idea on how much they move. This state-of-the-art technology is awesome because you can get real data and you can actually see what's going on with this group of 10 individuals here, and we have them all over the places here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more, and you can get a better idea of what they're doing. You know, obviously, our goal is to see them group up a little more, and once they do that, and they choose the best habitat for them, and that's going to be ideal because they'll be safer, and I think they'll be able to survive in this range. You know. As you know, this mountain range goes all the way from 3,000 feet to 9,000 feet. You know, we don't want them at 9,000 feet. We want them to select that perfect habitat for them, and that's what we're hoping. That's coming together as we speak. We're starting to see some of them group up together, and this is really good, or pair up, I should say, and that's really good. That's a really good indication that they are getting comfortable with the habitat now, and they choosing where to live and such. So that's a really good thing.
Why aren't they necessarily all grouped up by now?
They came from two different sources, and also, you know, it just takes a while for them to do that.
Okay. And you, as game and fish officers, you're alerted every time there's no longer any movement for one that has a GPS tracker, which may indicate a problem.
We get a mortality signal, and within 10 hours of that collar being set at you know, just set in a place without moving, we get a mortality signal, and that's what initiates an investigation. In fact, and that's one of the reasons why we have more information on this project than other projects, because we have that new technology, which we're still working on. We have a little bit of issues, you know, with the collars, but I think we're working with the manufacturer and trying to resolve those small issues that we had with those collars.
They're all here. As you said, it is your responsibility to do something with them. You can't just ignore it. You've brought them here, and it's your job to manage how they move from this point on. Initially,
you know, as we had those public meetings, the press releases before the main release of the sheep here, we were hoping to get some public input. Now that we have the sheep here, we have the responsibility. We can't just walk away from it now. We have a huge responsibility, and to help the population.
Game and Fish says translocation projects are not funded by taxpayers, but through agency fees, and those fees have paid for other translocation projects. For example, Arizona is home to a healthy population of California condors and thousands of bighorn sheep. Here again is Raul Vega from Game and Fish.
The silver bill population is doing fairly well. They've been there for decades, and also native to the area. And you know, we do a lot of conservation work to keep wildlife, not only bighorn sheep but other wildlife in the area, alive. We do provide water sources to them. We build water catchments, and the population seems to be doing well as of now.
Are mountain lions a problem out there?
Mountain lions are a problem there as well. The population, I think, has gained a lot of strength to be able to survive throughout the last couple of decades, and you know, they're coexist together at this point, but lions are there as well. Yes.
So Game and Fish has been involved in relocation projects throughout the state for decades, and they've been successful. Tell me about some of those.
We've done, just in the sheep, we've done over 2,000 translocation projects up to this point. We have 5,500 sheep, estimated population of bighorn sheep out there, and that's really good. And that's a lot of it because of the translocations that we've done. And that is important. That is what we do. It is our mission, and I'm very optimistic that we're going to have the same situation here in the Catalinas as we go through this project.
Game and Fish has also relocated turkeys.
We have. That's another species that I'm proud to talk about. We started about 20 years ago. We did a translocation down in the Chiricahuas. We, you know, captured some turkeys in Mexico, brought them here. Now we have a source population in the Huachucas that we use to enhance other populations throughout the region. We also recently traded with New Mexico. We traded 60 turkeys from antelope, pronghorn antelope. That's another species that we're working on to enhance the population. Our population of pronghorn antelope was continuing to decline for the last several years, and now this year we're starting to see the numbers go up again. So that's a really good sign.
But as you stress, it takes time.
It takes time, it takes years, it could take 3 to 4 years to bring those populations back. And again, I will say that we don't focus just on big game, we focus on non-game species, including gila trout, for instance, including the Chiricahua leopard frogs, including black-tailed prairie dogs, all those wildlife species, because we want to have them here 20 years from now and 50 years from now. I think overall, all wildlife species that are native to the state is worth reintroducing them back to those areas that they may be lacking. And I think it's important for us to continue to work and do good wildlife conservation work to get those species back to normal. And so our kids and grandkids can see those in the future.
And Arizona Public Media is committed to following the controversy surrounding the translocation of the bighorn sheep. You can stay up to date with the latest developments on our website, news.azpm.org. Now to some other news with what's happening at the state capitol. Here with us, his legislative wrap for the week is political correspondent Christopher Conover. What's going on up there this week?
Big story this week actually was the repeal of a bill. Last year, the legislature passed a sweeping election reform bill. It ended up 140,000 people signed a petition, put it on the ballot to repeal it this November. The legislature has trying to repeal it themselves before that happens, and the House passed it this week. The big concern, though, is that state lawmakers will go ahead and repeal it. The Senate and the governor still have to chime in, and then try and put it back in little pieces. Chad Campbell, the House Minority Leader, said his concern is a Frankenstein bill plundering the village of Arizona, as he called it.
Oh, pretty dramatic.
It was.
So how soon might we see this actually start to take effect for voters?
The Senate could take it up next week or the week after, and then it's to the governor. All of it's on hold while this gets worked out. If it gets repealed, it won't go into effect at all. The question then becomes what happens to the ballot initiative, even though it's there, and the fact that the bill doesn't or the law doesn't exist anymore, what happens with that ballot initiative?
Okay. What about this next week? Anything major to look forward to at this point?
This next week we have some more appropriations for education coming up in committee, and of course further votes on this election bill will probably be the big issues this week.
Okay, a lot to come, and this session we expect to wrap up later, of course.
Of course, sometime probably April, early May.
Okay, Christopher Conover, thank you so much for your legislative wrap this week. And that does it for this edition of Arizona Week. For all of us at Arizona Public Media, I'm Lorraine Rivera.